Alright, let's try to get this right on the first take, for crying out loud. Well, it's July of 2023, and before we begin, let me just say, if you caught the reference before the credits rolled, you are my kind of horror movie nerd. Leave me a note down in the comments if you have any idea what I was talking about. But more importantly, because it is July of 2023, it's time for me to open the July of 2023 horror packs. I've got the DVD horror pack and the Blu-ray horror pack. Of course, for those of you who don't know, HorrorPack is the horror movie subscription service. Each of them, the DVD and the Blu-ray option, comes with 4 horror movies. They're different every month. They're different between the 2 packs, and I get both of them, and I open them up here on this channel and show y'all whatever I got. If you're interested in HorrorPack, there's a link to them down in the What's It. This is not sponsored, by the way. I just like what they do, so check them out. And also, if you're interested in any of these movies, if you're not a subscriber to HorrorPack and you want to get copies for yourself, there will be purchase links for all of them, at least that I can find. Also down in the What's It, along with all of my other notes about my various projects and things, so you can stay informed about all the things that I'm up to. So do all that stuff, but without further ado, let's go ahead and get right to opening up these packages. Here is, of course, the first package, and that brings us to package number 2. And while I do that, let me just remind you to do all the other YouTube-y kinds of things that I have to ask you to do every time to help grow this channel. So leave me a comment, like this video, share it with friends, family, acquaintances, random people you meet on the street. Share it with whoever you might want to share it with. Be sure, of course, to subscribe and ring that notification bell. All of those things help me keep doing what I like to do here on this channel. But we got the 2 packages out, so let's dig right in and see what wonderful things the fine folks over at HorrorPack have sent this month. So when I make these videos, I always like to start with the DVD horror pack, and that would be this one right here. So let's dig in and see what DVDs we have for July of 2023. Every time I say that, I feel a little bit strange because this year seems to be getting away from me. Anyway, the first film is a movie entitled Village of the Vampire. It's one I'm not familiar with, but the tagline says he's painting the town red. Presumably we all know exactly what that means. Like I said, it's a film I'm unfamiliar with, but let's read the description and see what we're in for. It says, Rebecca is searching for her sister, a young journalist who went missing while investigating a series of unfortunate events. I wonder if that was an intentional reference or not. Regardless, we'll carry on. It says, the trail leads her to Tamir, a remote place far from the hustle and bustle of everyday life, where, amidst the tight-lipped silence of the town's inhabitants, there's an ever-growing fear of dark forces at work, and no one dares to leave their home at night. It seems like the only time when I like to leave my home, especially with the weather as hot as it's been lately, but that's neither here nor there. Carrying on, it says, here Rebecca meets an extravagant writer, the church warden of the town, and above all, Caleb, a charming, rich, and elegant man whose dark gaze hides a chilling secret. It's in this town, where time appears to move between the shadows and danger lurks around every corner, that Rebecca learns of the terrible truth, and the battle between good and evil begins. So, it sounds like a fairly standard sort of a vampire story. Not exactly like every other one. We have somebody searching for her journalist sister. That's obviously not something we read in every vampire novel or see in every vampire movie. But the idea of the wealthy and elegant, charming vampire, that is fairly well known. But I suppose it's well known because it works. Ever since Dracula, that's kind of been our idea of what vampires are meant to be. It does sound like a pretty good story. Maybe not all that original, but like I've said a million times before, not everything needs to be earth-shatteringly original as long as it's well done. The photos on the back and the cover art look intriguing, and it sounds like something that I will likely enjoy. So I'll be looking forward to trying Village of the Vampire. That brings us to our second offering, which is a film entitled Witches of Blackwood. The tagline on this one says, "She is the daughter of darkness." This is another one with which I'm unfamiliar. The cover art looks a little bit familiar, but I don't believe I've seen the film, unless perhaps I drunkenly stumbled across it on Netflix or Shudder or something, but I don't think so. I think this is a new one to me. Let's read the description and see what this one is all about. The back says, following her mother's death, a young woman returns home, only to find the town overshadowed by a mysterious darkness and steeped in rumors of a soul-stealing entity. A confrontation with a coven of witches is the only way to survive. Aside from the coven of witches part, that sounded a lot like the series that I started watching. I watched the first season of a series called From, which has a similar kind of mysterious town, and in that case people can't leave and there's a mysterious entity hunting people. So it sounds like maybe some elements similar to that show, if that's a show that you've liked. But we also have witches, so if you like witchcraft kinds of movies, there's something for you here as well. Like I said, it's one that I haven't seen. Having now read the description, I can guarantee it's one I haven't seen because I haven't seen anything that bears any resemblance to that particular description. So I'm looking forward to trying this one as well. Next, and third from the DVD pack, we have a film entitled The Nest. The tagline here says, "They'll infest your mind and don't let the bed bugs bite." I wonder if this is actually about bed bugs or if it's just about bugs in general. Let's read the description and find out. It says, "When your nightmares come true." When Meg and her mother Beth visit a yard sale, Beth buys her young daughter an adorable stuffed bear, thinking it may help with Meg's separation anxiety. As children do, she quickly becomes completely attached to the bear, talking to it and taking it everywhere she goes. I can understand that. However, soon Beth notices that the bear is communicating with Meg and even influencing her daughter's behavior. Then, when Meg starts developing strange hoarding habits and seems infected by a manipulative parasitic creature, things take a turn for the worse. Sounds like things already took a turn for the worse, but we'll let that slide and carry on. Moving on, it says, "Soon it's clear there's something much more nightmarish and sinister to this yard sale toy than anyone could have imagined." So I was expecting bugs, just infestation of lots of insects running about, and it seems like this is not what we're getting here. We have, presumably, there are bugs on the cover, and it mentions this parasitic creature, so presumably there are insects or arachnids or some other type of bug, but it seems like it's much more focused on this bear as the vehicle or the vessel through which this parasitic creature enters the home, and I kind of like that idea. I like the sound of a movie that could render something as wonderful as a adorable childhood toy or a loved teddy bear and take that idea and render it something horrific. That's the sort of thing that appeals to twisted people like me. So it's another one I haven't seen and another one I am keen to watch as soon as I can find a minute to do so. And finally, from the DVD pack, we have a film entitled The Butchering. The tagline on the front of this one says, "Every town has a monster." That seems likely to be true, but I tend to like monsters, so as far as I'm concerned, that's probably a good thing. This is another film I'm unfamiliar with, so in terms of new films to me, the DVD pack is 4 for 4. But because I am unfamiliar with it, let's read the description and see what this one's all about. The back of the case here says, "Some secrets can never be buried. A serial killer returns to the small town where he tormented and murdered teenagers, targeting those who survived. A young police officer, himself a survivor of the original event, must now convince everyone that the killer has returned and find a way to prevent a new massacre." So once again, this is not an entirely original story. We have basically a slasher story or a serial killer story, but those always tend to be interesting and as I've said before, as long as it's well told, well acted, well made, it should be a great film. I've obviously not seen this one yet, so I don't know whether it's good or not, but I, for one, am willing to give it the benefit of any doubt, and will watch this with great eagerness. That brings us, of course, to the Blu-ray HorrorPack, and I don't really have any other introductory sort of remarks, so let's dive right into that. The first of the Blu-rays is The Craft Legacy. The tagline on this one says, "The ritual begins again." This is from Blumhouse. Of course, I am very familiar with The Craft. I suspect most of my viewers are as well. I have not seen The Craft Legacy. This is one that Blumhouse brought out, I think, oh, my sense of time is failing me, but I want to say 2 or 3 years ago this came out, and sort of flew under my radar, never really heard much about it, except that it was, so I was aware of it, but I never saw it. Let's go ahead and read the description and see what this one's all about. According to the description here, in Blumhouse's continuation of the cult hit The Craft, an eclectic foursome of aspiring teenage witches gets more than they bargained for as they lean into their newfound powers. That tells us really nothing other than that this is a sequel to The Craft. But I suppose that's all it really needs to tell us, because if you know The Craft, you either like it or you don't, and if you like it, presumably you're interested in this one. The Craft was never my absolute favorite, but I do enjoy it for what it is, so I will also be looking forward to The Craft Legacy. Second from the Blu-ray pack, we have a film entitled Incarnation. This is another one I don't know. I haven't seen this one yet. The cover looks quite intriguing to me, and the description on the back says, based on the legendary demon Mammon, Incarnation is a twisted tale of greed about a young couple chasing the American dream. Brad and Jess move to Los Angeles in search of a better life. When they stumble upon a hidden real estate gem, they are elated by their turn of fortune. But they soon learn that greed comes with a hefty price, when their ideal home is hiding a secret far more sinister than they could ever have imagined. So, we've seen that before. You move into a house that's a bit too good of a bargain, and as we all know in horror movies, if something seems too good to be true, it probably is. Personally, I'm all in favor of that. I want to buy the haunted house, even if it turns out to be a bit more evil than your average haunted house. I'm still interested to get in there and see what's going on. I am presumably a lot weirder than the characters in this or so many other horror movies. But that is a good premise for a horror movie. As I've said with a couple of these other ones, it's a cliche or an established trope because it works. So, looking forward to trying out this haunted house story. We know from the description it deals with the demon Mammon, so that gives us some clues as to what's going on, and hopefully, presumably, and hopefully, it treats us to a good creepy tale. So I'll be looking forward to trying this one out as well. I seem to say that about all of these, don't I? But repetitive or not, truth is truth. Anyway, moving on to the third of the Blu-rays, we have a film entitled The Intruder. The tagline here says, "He moved out, he didn't move on." Thing on the bottom, a quote from the Los Angeles Times calls it a reverse Get Out. This is another one with which I'm unfamiliar, and personally I love that. I think we're doing great so far, because while I frequently do like to revisit some of my favorite films from years past, I also really like to discover new things that might have flown under my radar, or things that maybe I wouldn't have seen or wouldn't have chosen to watch otherwise. And that's what I like about HorrorPack, because they give me lots of stuff I haven't seen before. Anyway, moving back to this one, the description here says, when a young married couple buys their dream home in the Napa Valley, they think they have found the perfect home to take their next steps as a family. But when the strangely attached seller continues to infiltrate their lives, they begin to suspect that he has hidden motivations beyond a quick sale. I recall this film now. I haven't seen it, but I do recall seeing trailers for it, and it looks rather intriguing. That idea of you've bought a house and the seller just doesn't go away takes the idea of the stalker or the home invader in a slightly different direction and adds sort of a interesting twist to it. The trailers did look quite good. I haven't seen the movie yet, but this is another winner as far as I'm concerned in terms of the hoping it's good and looking forward to watching it category. And that brings us to our final Blu-ray for this month. There is always a HorrorPack exclusive in the Blu-ray pack. Presumably that's what this is. We have here a film called Loon. The spine says this is exclusive number 85. They've been at this for a while. I came in sometime around exclusive number 50, so I guess I've been at this for a little while too. Anyway, I tend never to know anything about these exclusives in advance because, well, they tend to be films that haven't had a particularly wide release, and that's why they are exclusives. But I usually seem to like them. The HorrorPack people seem, most of the time, to select high-quality films for their exclusives. Let's read the description on this one and see what we're in for here. It says, when Taylor's father unexpectedly passes away, he inherits all of his property, including a secluded little lake house in Montana. Soon after, Taylor and his new bride, Anne, decide to honeymoon by the lake for some much-needed rest and relaxation. I can relate to that, except nobody's left me a house at which to give said rest and relaxation. Can't win every time. Anyway, carrying on, it says, but as the two begin to settle in, things are not as serene as they thought. There's no one around. The forest is almost too quiet, and they soon encounter an overbearing neighbor named Chuck, who likes to carry around an axe. So, presumably we know where things are headed there, and with a title like Loon, I think we have a pretty good idea. Although I gotta say, carrying around an axe doesn't seem all that unusual to me, but once again, I am the weirdo, so take that for whatever it's worth. Anyway, we've got 8 movies, and I haven't seen any of these, so that is wonderful news for me. But that brings us, unfortunately, to the end of our time together for this particular day. I will, of course, be back with some other horror-related goodness soon enough, so be sure to stick around for that. Do all those other YouTube-y things, liking and sharing and all of that, while I head off to watch some movies. And until next time, as always, take care and stay scared.